3, 2, 1, action. Hey everybody, it's the sport guy Austin here, Austin Travis Anderson, live at the StakeHouse here in Pflugerville, and I'm joined by Don Dayton, a online professional poker player, someone you don't really want at your table. They sit down and you let out a sigh or some sort of groan. You know your money's destined to be gone. He's joining us. I signed him up for the team in a happenstance occurrence. Honestly, he popped out of nowhere. I never met you before. We were hanging out, and I was like, "Hey, I'm doing this site," and you're like, "Oh, cool. I'll be on the team."
Yeah, totally random. I mean, we could get into that too, but maybe a little bit later. Like, I wasn't expecting to live here or anything, but I just heard the games were good, and kind of found a place to live rather quickly, and decided to just stay here and play live tournaments. So yeah, I guess just a little bit about myself is that I've been playing online professionally for 10 years, or more towards 8 to 9, I guess. And then in recent years, living back in the US after living abroad and playing online, I've started to focus on live cash games. So that's kind of what brought me back to Austin, is because of the live poker rooms and the rumors of the games being particularly good.
And when you say a game is particularly good, they're just the skill level is not there, right? I mean, that's what you're talking about mainly.
Yeah, I think it has. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what's going on around here, but I think that it has to do with the fact that the rooms are relatively new. So it's a new law was passed where they were allowed to open up these card rooms. The rake is low, which is great, so it keeps people around a little bit longer. And I think just the gambling mentality and how Texas Hold'em and poker is very prevalent in the area. It just brought a lot of new players in. It takes a long time for people to get acclimated to the game, especially when they're playing one table of against a bunch of people that are probably not very good. There's very few pros in the low stakes games around here, so it's a good opportunity to sort of have low variance, which means you're not gonna win or lose too much, but you're also not gonna lose a ton. And take advantage of the fact that the low stakes games even play bigger than higher stakes games in other places. So just because you're playing 1-2 here, it doesn't mean that you're capped at making like $15 an hour. The games play 1-2, oftentimes straddled multiple times. So a 1-2 game is really closer to your average 2-5 game.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have a checkered past with the game. I love to play, but I can't afford it, so I don't anymore. But I'm watching you right now, multi-table, knocking out 10 people, crushing people's lives. It's incredible. I don't know how you process the whole thing, honestly. I just don't. You're moving so fast. It's a blur of activity, and all the chips are coming your way. It's like, oh, nice.
Yeah.
I think we talked, in detail a little bit about the different locations that you've been. You mentioned Montreal being the top. What's the opposite of Montreal? It's the top. What's the bottom?
Well, let me just backtrack a little bit there. As when I say top, I don't mean it's the best place to play.
Okay.
The game conditions are okay. Like I said, the rake is high. I just found it to be one of the nicest, enjoyable, most well-run card rooms. So that's what I meant by like best. So best, I meant like my favorite place to play.
Mm-hmm.
The best place to play is pretty debatable, and I'd have to go look at travel more, and you can find some sweet spots that usually would be games where you can make more money would be the better game.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like from the brief window that was open, Austin was kind of becoming one of those type of spots where it was like a honey hole for a professional who is playing 10 tables. Now you just have to manage the mere one table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it took a while. It seems like I think the games were better here when I first started, but it's still relatively new. So, like I said, there's a lot of people that love the game and they haven't seen nearly as many hands as I have. So I think I have a good edge against them, even without having a ton of experience playing in person. The people I'm playing against, I don't think are picking up on too much live reads. Some of them might be, but it makes it so it's not too difficult to sort of acclimate yourself from the online scene to the live scene when everyone else you're playing against is basically has no idea what they're doing.
I would argue that none of us really know what we're doing.
That's
I would
true.
I would make that argument, and I would take any counters. No one really knows. I mean, you have learned, you were trained on this stuff. You didn't just start out doing 10 tables. How was that process?
Okay, so it's sort of a long story, but I guess, yeah, so the process-wise was, it's actually just came relatively naturally to me. So I started off playing Limit Hold'em, and, well, I guess I could go back even a little bit further. I started out and I lost a couple $100 deposits, and I swore off the game for a little bit. That was the beginning, but I liked poker, and I started to read a couple books, and then I lost like another $100 or something. I didn't know anything about bankroll management. And my friend was like, I don't know, it sounds like you kind of know what you're talking about. Maybe you should give it another shot. So I did some more research about bankroll management. And I decided, okay, if I play this stake, I went on the forums and found out how many buy-ins you need or bets you need. So in Limit Hold'em, the bigger bet is called a big bet. And, around, I think it's 200 big bets would be a significant bankroll where you should have like a less than 1% chance of losing all your money if you're playing correctly. So I said, all right, I'll save up, which at the time was $400, and I'll grind this out. If I lose it, then I know I've either ran down to the 1%, which is pretty unlikely, or I should keep playing. And when I was doing that, I was getting something called rake back, which I found to be pretty interesting. So if I was even breaking even in the game, I was getting some of my rake that I was paying back. And I've always been interested in that part of it. So once I switched over to sit and goes, because I knew someone that was making money playing sit and goes, and Limit Hold'em was kind of dying at the time, I knew that if I played more games, the idea is to play as many games as you can in a day, right? If you have a 5% ROI in a $10 tournament, you're gonna make what is that, 50 cents? Yeah. So 50 cents per game. So you want to play a lot of games, obviously, if you're going to try to make real money. And I went from, going to 2 to 3, and then just like, once I learned the basic strategy, I just popped right up to like 10 and kind of played it from there and did okay, actually. So it was pretty quick as far as adding tables. It just came naturally.
And these are sit and go type tournaments that you're playing?
9-man sit and go.
9-man. So. Just a single table sit and goes?
Yeah.
Wow. Holy cow. And you get like 10 of those going at one time?
Yeah, and one of the things about those games is that the strategy is fairly basic. It's, you try to get top 3 to get in the money, and then you want to win. And most of them are turbos too, by the way. So the blind structures are quite fast. And the most important thing you need to know really is like you basically play tight, and then you need to know whether to go all in or fold. And since you can just go all in or fold, you learn the ranges, and that allows you to just sort of flip through hands and just, instantly muck the spots that don't matter and then go all in.
Nice. Watching the action here with Blur. New York, you hailed from there. When did you get out of New York? How quick did you escape the
So I grew up in East Hampton, New York, so the eastern end of Long Island. Small town, really fun in the summer. I was a lifeguard in the summer on the ocean, which was great.
Wow.
And graduated high school, which was nice, and went to school in Rhode Island. So I was 18, and I guess I've always gone back in the summers because they're so enjoyable, and I can stay at my parents' house for free, and there's good work or things to do. Some summers I wouldn't go back, but so around 18 I left the nest. You could say.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, and sounds like you did some studying, but what were you passionate about while you were in college? I did not make it. I think I made it to maybe 1 semester, 2 semesters. I was just like, no, this isn't for me, and I was kind of wasting my grandmother's money on it. And I was like, I'll join the Army. That's what I'll do, and that's what I did. It sounds like you might have taken a different path there with the poker potentially that quick, or
No, well, poker pulled me away from school, but not in the traditional way where I just decided to quit. I'll explain here.
Okay, yeah, got an interesting
One
spot there.
second. Oh, yeah, so in high school, I used to, I was into skateboarding and surfing, and my friends were quite a bit better than me, so I kind of got into filming them.
Oh,
I got a camera, and we started learning video editing on some old school computers now. Still pretty decent stuff back then. I mean, they had Final Cut Pro and stuff. I didn't have that program, but shit. So I got into that, and I also we had a film production class in high school, which was kind of cool. I'm not sure if all high schools offer that, but I enjoyed that class. So I ended up going to Rhode Island College for film studies for my freshman year, which was like somewhat related, but I was more into the editing aspect of it and creative, and film studies was more of the study of film. So it was still in the same like realm of getting credits towards what I was doing, but I didn't really enjoy it that much. And then my second year, I wanted to switch over to business, which I started doing, and then I didn't really like that either. So I decided to not go back for my third year and take a trip to Costa Rica. And kind of during that summer and into the beginning of the trip, poker had been going better and better. And then by the end of the trip, I came back. I moved to Florida, where I was supposed to be a bartender, but there was some kind of hurricane and work was a little bit hard to find. So in my free time, I was playing more and more poker, and started winning money at it. So instead of I wanted to make money, so I just started playing more and more poker.
No, I mean, you found a path and you're blazing it. It's incredible. I have attempted and started and stopped and started and stopped this journey with the Hold'em. For me, I met somebody at a bowling alley and they were like, "Hey, you want to go to a card game?" And I was like, "Sure." I never played cards before. Take my money. And that went on for quite some time. I mean, never really had a winning stretch. It was all pretty much just losing the whole time, but I didn't mind because it was like I was writing it off as like an entertainment type budget, Like,
yeah.
That's how I was rationalizing it. And every now and then I would have a horse on my ass and I'd win, a good night or something like that, but never any kind of sustained winning. I always like the idea of tournaments more than cash games, but I just don't have the patience for the tournaments. The amount of time to get to the end.
Yeah, it's tough, especially if you're doing it. So I've played different forms over the years, and I've probably had about a year and a half, 2 year stretch where I consider myself professional multi-table online tournament player, and it's really really rough. I mean, I was backed. I wasn't even playing that high at my worst stretch. So when you're backed, you usually have a deal called 50-50 with makeup is the most common deal. So you're splitting your winnings. And if you're on a losing stretch, so if you're up, you can split whenever you want. And if you're losing, you're in makeup, it's called. So you can get into makeup pretty quick, obviously. You can play $20 tournaments. And playing 0 to 50 and then taking shots on Sundays in 200s, I found myself in the hole for 26,000 that I owed my backers. So I had to win. I had my own money, and they were willing to help me out too, a little bit if I needed it. But I had this, in the back of my mind, I had to win 26,000, and then I could start profiting. So I'm looking at this this might take a long time, and thankfully it only took 3 or 4 months. Actually, I ran super hot at some point and got out of it. But yeah, it can be very daunting, and you can go on ridiculous stretches. Literally, you can play quite well, and it's not impossible to break even for an entire year.
That's where they must not even do it. You're talking about it as a past tense, like the rake back thing was so beneficial.
Yeah.
Because you had that little bit of a cushion.
Yeah, some sites still offer okay rake back, but PokerStars, the main site that had the S&E program that I got back in the day, and that was close to 70% of your rake back. So there's nothing exists like that anymore. And that's kind of why I changed to multi-table tournaments, because there was more. The edges in single table tournaments and cash games are very small, but in multi-table tournaments they can be big. But the problem is the variance is huge, so it's less consistent. But it's also, you can win at like a bigger clip when you don't have right back and sit goes. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in a cash game, you might. I mean, if you're playing like a 1-2 stake, you see $1,000 stack, that's going to be like kind of massive. Whereas in these tournaments, the prize pool, I saw one of them that you were playing earlier was like 40 grand. You could never get that on a cash game table. So
yeah, it's two totally different games. Online cash has always historically been considered tougher, in my opinion. It's a tougher grind. There's less weak players because if you just like dabble in cash games as a person who's playing recreationally or whatever, you're going to get pretty killed pretty fast. And a lot of people just quit. So like the turnover rate isn't that huge, but in tournaments, like there's a bigger luck factor. So a lot of people take these scores and then they think that they're good and they keep playing. So it keeps the bad players coming back more often. And also, you can take a shot for $16 and potentially win a lot of money. And a lot of people want to do that instead of sitting down with 200 and trying to win a pot of 50 or lose your whole stack.
right. No, I mean, in revisiting my path and any kind of redemption story, it has to be through tournament poker. It can't be like I can't never play cash game poker again. The results are so tremendously bad that I would have to win like on some crazy streak. That's just not feasible. But I don't know how you train for multi-table tournaments. Yeah, go ahead. Come in there, sir. Oh, it's locked. Never mind.
We're on a podcast right now.
Yeah, who's that?
Samber.
No, I feel like I got left out of the secret. But how do you train for these deep runs when you have to play for hours and hours and hours? How do you practice that? Or like, do you just go to like the super micro stake and do it? Or
That's tough. I mean, it's just all about playing a lot. So, being someone that was just taking it from a professional standpoint from the beginning, you're going to go on runs and you get more and more experience about playing deep in tournaments. So there's no real way to do it, just to play and get there and make sure you play well at the end. Try to take it down. I mean, there's a lot going on in tournaments. It can be funner for people because there's more to them. You have all these different stack sizes, whereas a cash game is just the same thing. You can reload every time. So, there's a lot of all-ins in tournaments and big scores and things like that to try to select people.
Yeah, I mean, the main score I think about in the boom was that Chris Moneymaker guy. Like they couldn't have scripted it better. The guy's name is Moneymaker.
I know, it's simulation stuff.
Right. I mean, it's like, hey guys, you want to learn how to play poker? Here it is. It's on ESPN now, and there's a guy named Chris Moneymaker. He just won millions of dollars off a satellite on a website. You should probably try to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of amazing what that created. It created a complete fervor. And, man, the games were so good. They were almost too good. It made it seem so easy for anybody that was just kind of decent. You could basically win. And then if you put a little bit of effort in, you were going to win at a decent clip. And it kind of made a lot of people lazy in a way because it was so easy come, easy go back then. And then obviously over time it became tougher and tougher.
Yeah, just the exposure to the game, people are going to pick it up and learn it in that regard. So you don't have just a buffet of the same fish sits down every time. Mm-hmm. People actually start to understand, some of the concepts. Like the latest thing that I've heard about it and only heard about is game theory optimal, like playing in that particular style.
Yeah, GTO.
Yeah, exactly. I think trying too hard a little bit, honestly, because I don't want to think of poker as a game that could be solved,
Well, so some of the formats are technically solved, especially heads up, 25 big blind hyper tournaments. It's the most simplest form. You're playing one-on-one. You're short stack. The blinds are increased, so there's only the game tree can only get so large when you're short. And obviously they had banned bots from playing, especially on the major sites. But GTO is great in a way because it kind of shows you how you should be thinking about stuff. Like if you do study GTO, you'll get a lot of epiphanies, and you're like, wait, why does the computer want to do this? And you're like, oh, because when I have, a heart in my hand, it takes away the chances that they have this hand. So, it's doing this with the 9 of hearts, but it's not doing it with 9 of spades, clubs, or diamonds. And you kind of you think about why it's doing this with the 9 of hearts, and it makes you better in general. So you don't have to if you learn GTO, you don't have to apply it perfectly. Obviously, the other style is called exploitative, where when you're playing GTO, you're trying to play a style that is unbeatable. So no matter what anybody does, they can't win chips from you. That's where the basis of GTO is. Whereas exploitative, you're trying to exploit them. You may be giving up some money if they knew what you were doing, but you're winning more because you're honing in on exactly where they're at.
Right. To me, that's spotting someone's weakness or leak and then just punishing them all the time, every single time you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an exploitative style, and there's always been an argument in poker about GTO versus exploitative. But like I said, I think people underestimate the benefits of just understanding where GTO starts, and you can learn a lot, like why it's doing certain things, and opening up that part of your mind that is thinking about the more intricate things, like your backdoor draws and your blockers and all these other things that people know what those terms mean. It can help your game a lot. So I studied GTO a fair bit, but nothing too crazy.
But am I wrong in thinking it's a newer type of way of thinking about it? Because when I was learning how to play, I had never heard anybody talk about GTO. Has it always been around, and it's just kind of getting?
No, it's the programs got better and better over time, and I would say I first remember it really being a thing around 2015, 2016, and they've gotten better since then. So.
And the stuff I read, it's like you want to bet here because 70% of the time they don't have it, and like that kind of stuff. Is that GTO or
one of the? I think what you probably mean is one of the interesting things about it is that in order to play optimal, you need to have a mixed strategy. So otherwise, if you just do the same thing, people kind of can pick up on it, right? So you wouldn't be unbeatable. So like say, for example, you have a flush draw, and GTO will, depending on what kind of flush draw you have and the action and stuff, but if your head's up, it'll tell you to bet like 65% of the time, at a 75% pot size, and bet 20% of the time at a 15% or 20% pot size, and then check like 10% of the time, something like that. So actually every move, check, bet big, bet small, is all viable and can be considered optimal. It's just about you choosing the percentages correctly. So like humans have a tough time doing that. How are they actually going to choose 65%? So a lot of people do use random number generators.
That's what I was going to say.
But that's at a higher level. Like if you're playing high stakes, that kind of stuff matters. But as far as the more lower stakes games, it's just nothing to even really consider. It's too complex, and there's a lot to learn as far as basics go before GTO anyway. So
yeah, so take it back a step. Go Barney level. Like said that these games are, you're smashing them out of the park. Games, right? For the most part. Right.
Okay.
What are you looking at? How do you size somebody up and know if they're somebody or nobody?
I can tell very, very, very quickly just based on general style. So one common way to tell if somebody is playing well is usually they're not going to be limping in. You want to be basically raising or folding whenever it's folded to you. And there's always exceptions in certain spots and certain game types, but you can tell by the person who may be a pro or may be a part-time pro or someone that we call playing for profit. Like they're actually trying to win. They're not just there drinking, having fun. They're going to be the tighter people at the table, pre-flop especially. So they're not limping in every hand. They're not calling raises very often. They are calling sometimes, and when they do, but oftentimes instead of calling a raise, they'll be the person re-raising. So it's pretty easy to kind of sniff that out. And if you see people just calling a lot of hands, like even if you don't know exactly what the percentage is because you can't remember, you can just tell this guy's playing a lot of hands. He's playing too many hands. He's losing money, right? It's a leap. Like you can't just call the 6-7 offsuit when I'm at the table and I haven't played a hand in 30 minutes. You're putting in money way behind unless you flop 2 pair and stack me or something. But it doesn't happen often enough to make up for those calls.
Little insurance there at that second one.
Here.
Yeah. So, Mr. Calling Machine, calling station as they were.
And what you'll find is that there's usually not one of them, especially in the games around here. There's half the table's a station. So the strategy I implement is playing tight and aggressive, and I scale back on bluffing because people just don't like to fold. They're calling any pair, any draw. They're trying to hit hands, and because of that, you can't really push them off.
They're not even thinking that you're representing the flush draw. They just think I have top pair.
Yeah, and they're thinking I could hit trips if I call with bottom pair. I've already called pre-flop. I could last week I had my 6-8 suited hit, so I got to call it this time, even though the guy re-raised me. That kind of silly stuff people think about. It's just losing money. So.
But I still really struggle with the idea that it's solved. Like I understand we were talking about those tournament types, those particular formats, because there's only so many limited amount of scenarios. I could see.
Yeah, so it's not solved, and especially there are new programs coming out that are getting better, but because the game tree, or basically every decision point gets so complex, the programs currently can't really adjust to multiple people being in the pot. So while you can study, if you know what I'm raising and what he's calling with in a multi-table tournament, as long as it's heads up, you can see what the GTO will look like. And that also takes a little while too. It's going to take your computer, depending on how good your computer is, a while to process that tree and look at that hand. So it's time consuming, and you can't solve hands that have more than one player in them at the moment.
And outside of poker, talk a little bit about background info on yourself there. Any particular movies that you go to and stop or watch? Like if it's on, you're watching it every time? Anything like that?
I watch a fair bit of Netflix.
Okay.
Good wind down after grinding. A couple movies on Netflix here and there. As far as like genres in particular, I do like fantasy. I enjoy Game of Thrones. I like seasonal shows like that. I liked Game of Thrones before it was popular too. I read 2 of the books.
Oh wow! So yeah, that is a different level. I know the books exist. I don't know why I would ever. Once they started making the shows, I was like, oh well, they'll just keep making the shows. I don't need to go read the books. But to you, was it pretty well translated from the book to the show, or?
I thought it was actually. So I only read the first. As far as the exact storyline, there was a bit of time between the show coming out and me reading them, so it's hard for me to pick out details or anything. But every chapter, it didn't have a chapter name; it just had a character name, and they did the show basically the same way. So if you watch Game of Thrones, it'll sort of follow one character for like a third or a quarter of the episode, and then switch over to another character, focusing on them. So they use that sort of style, and I thought they did a pretty good job with it. Plus, the guy that wrote the books was on the production team, at least in the beginning. So
George R.R. Martin, I believe, is the gentleman. I think that there still could be a book remaining to come out potentially, even though the show's kind of done. Am I wrong on that?
I think you might be right. I don't follow it super closely. Um, I don't really have any interest in finishing the rest of the books. I might rewatch all the show, but yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I tried to. Speaking of rewatch, I tried to rewatch Breaking Bad. Did you like that one?
I did. It took me a long. I didn't get onto it for a long time. I ended up watching it years later after it came out. But a great show.
Yeah, I tried rewatching it and I couldn't do it. It lost me. Just too unbelievable scenario. Like, nope, I'm out. Don't feel that way about Wire. Obviously, I've watched The Wire multiple times.
Yeah, good shows.
Those, like, I mean, I think they're making another Game of Thrones, but I haven't really seen a show recently that really grasped me as the way that those shows did. I mean, like cult phenomenons, or pop culture hits all around. Like listening to Hall of Fame of TV. But there was one I was watching on HBO that was not too bad. It was like, I think it was Avenue 5. They're in like a spaceship, flying around doing stuff. It's a comedy. I watched the beginning of the first episode. It was pretty good. I tried to get into that other one on HBO, the Outsider. You dabble with HBO at all?
Um, really, but I've heard about The Outsider. I've heard that people liked it in the beginning and then it fell off or something. That's what I recently read on Twitter, but I don't know. I haven't checked it out. I think I ended my sub after the last season of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I'm leeching off of somebody. Somebody has provided a password for me, and as long as my smart TV remembers that password, I'm in. as soon as it dies, I'll have to limp in with my. Hey, can I have your password again for the HBO subscription? Um, what about? I mean, the Disney one is the one everyone was talking
I haven't
about.
gotten into it yet.
I'm on that same train. I did watch one episode of the Star Wars show. If you're a Star Wars fan, and it was
I am a Star Wars fan, but yeah, just the movies so far. That intrigued. I didn't know that Disney was doing. They're doing a seasonal show now.
oh my gosh, it's called The Mandalorian, and if you watch it, you realize almost instantaneously that they have unlimited Star Wars content at the ready that they can just uh, dispatch at any moment. Um, it's incredible. Yes, they made a Star Wars like live action. Every episode is like watching a movie almost because you're in that environment. The production level is as high as it gets because they're freaking Disney, and it's Star Wars, and they have yes. I would. I'm hoping at some point I can scavenge a Disney password, um, or I might. I was actually calling HB or not HBO. I was calling AT&T because my bill went up a little bit. I was calling them to see why my bill went up, and then if my promotional period is over, I might just cut the cord completely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued now. I might even get it just because you said that.
Oh yeah. The one episode that I watched was incredible. I won't spoil anything for you, but they have a really famous. You've got to have seen the character on Twitter or just the internet in general. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't.
No, I don't think I have.
All right, well I'll leave it the surprise then for you. Um, but yeah, it's very good show. I almost got the subscription. I pulled back there right before going over the cliff because we have all of them. We have Amazon, Hulu, Netflix, and we have the full thing. It's like, we gotta buy another thing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's reasonable because it is Disney streaming, and Disney has. I mean, my God, I remember. I mean, did you watch Disney movies as like a child? Like,
sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
like I was watching like Dumbo and stupid shows like that, as a kid. Fox and the Hound was a big one. Um, then they started coming out with the Pixar stuff, which I'll admit the Pixar stuff is better than the other stuff, just in my opinion.
Yeah.
The only thing maybe that would be close to Pixar would be Lion King, maybe.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My favorite movie, though, if you want to go back to movies, real
Yeah,
quick,
sure.
There Will Be Blood was my favorite one for a long time.
There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
I've
Daniel
spent
Day-Lewis.
many a night falling asleep to that movie because it's an enthralling movie, but the pace of it will allow for a nap.
Yeah. You can be a bit slow at times,
But
I like historical fiction. So
uh,
Journeyman, that movie is based off of Sinclair's book Oil, I'm pretty sure. So it does have some historical references that, obviously it's not a true story
Sure.
completely, but
This character is loosely based on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Bastard in a Basket is one of the most powerful. Like, what the heck what is going on right now? That's happening. He's just yelling at this guy. Oh my gosh, dude! Like he's that cold blooded. He's just gonna do that to the kid's been with him this whole time, and he just gives him the Bastard in the Basket. I lost him on that one.
Yeah, the ending was pretty wild. Kind of showed that, like, one of those things like money doesn't buy you happiness. Like, he was just out of his mind. And even when he lived in that mansion, he was just getting drunk every night, and passing out on the bowling alley areas by himself. So, I mean, how fun can that be?
Well, I mean, tortured soul, I guess, right? Well,
Yeah.
didn't he lose his love or something? Isn't that how it starts, or something like that? Or am I misreading that? Or was he just a type A?
Yeah, just ruthless, narcissistic, socio.
Well, I mean, it helps when you're ahead of the game, right? He was many moves ahead of pretty much everybody running to the oil fields,
And then he didn't allow himself to get bought out. He was smart enough to hold and knew what he had, whereas many people would have just taken the money because, whatever. Back then, I think in the movie he was offered somewhere, like, it was a lot of money. I'm not sure exactly. I don't want to misquote something, but it was enough to basically, for somebody to live well off for a long time. But he was just like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to create my own company and just make all the money, build my own pipeline, everything. So.
Yeah, I would like to create and build something so monumental that someone's coming to offer me generational wealth. That would be the goal of the whole thing that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so naive to the ways of the world, and I've been in business, kind of working in sales for a good amount of time in corporate America, I'd say. But I never really climbed the ladder of success, sadly.
Yeah, it can be. You got to be very driven, and it's not for everybody either. I mean, it's something you think you want, but then to get there is a whole other path.
Yeah, I would just say Austin ain't for everybody, and I have a particular personality that sometimes doesn't go over so well in an office setting, which is why this working from home thing is like a revelation. Now it's a bit troubling. I do need to figure out some way to get on a steady workout trainer. Do you have a workout regimen?
I don't. I've been getting back into it here and there, trying to go for walks or jogs on a somewhat regular basis, maybe once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And doing a little bit of lifting. I've gone through great stretches where I worked out, had regimens, but just at the moment, I haven't gotten it together. I ebb and flow like that a lot.
I ballooned up to a record weight, and by simply not eating as much, I lost a good bit of weight. But now I'm at that plateau phase where I gotta exert some physical activity if I want to see any more gains.
Yeah.
And this working right next to it'd be like my workstation is where you're playing poker at, basically. I just roll out of bed into work. It's very like, I don't know what the word is. It's just kind of ugh.
Yeah, it can be bad. Like I did it for a while and realized it was just not healthy. So I was starting to try to go to the gym more or just do something, get outside of the house before I started playing. And I found it helped a lot anyway, just having a clear head. When you wake up in the morning, you're a little foggy. You don't want to start your day off making mistakes. Whereas if you clear your head a little bit, get the blood flowing, you'll end up playing a lot better.
I would like to exercise. I just hate it. I feel like I did most of my I used up all my training regimen while I was in the Army, that little stint of period of time. I was a workout warrior, literally. I was a soldier. All we did was work out. We worked out when we were working out, and then we were working out, and then we were working out some more. A lot of the same exercises, if you could believe it. One time, we have PT every morning, like we wake up at like 5:30 or something, right? And one time we were doing, it's the same exercises every day. And the drill instructor said one exercise and then said another exercise, and it was the wrong one for the pattern. And I was like, that's not how it's supposed to be, drill sergeant. We're supposed to be doing this exercise. And she was like, oh my God, you're right. And it was like one of the worst exercises too. Like everyone probably hated me for it because they were probably like, yes, we're skipping that terrible exercise. But I was like, no, that's not how this works. You have to do the exercises in the right order. Obviously, you know, that's how my OCD brain was. I got some grief for the correction of the drill sergeant. Got some personal attention, if you will. So,
Yeah, I could see that.
doing some additional work, making it harder on myself, of course. But yeah, I used up all my. I cannot. Running to me is the worst thing ever. I just cannot run. I do like to exercise. Like if we're playing a sport, like for a while we were playing tennis kind of regularly and racquetball, basketball. But basketball is a young man's game. You can't be out there, old man, trying to play basketball.
The knees and the back.
Oh, and the athletes that are out there, they're just better, you know. You're faster, stronger. Because I've been sitting in front of a computer for 15 years doing sales, not exercising every day.
You gotta be careful not to injure yourself when you're playing basketball, that's for sure.
I don't have the athleticism to injure myself, I don't think.
Well, you still could, ankle roll or something.
Yeah, I
I've
really,
seen it happen.
I know, I see people jumping in really high and then they hurt themselves, so I don't do that. I don't really jump that. I just kind of, I'm a little bit tall for like a pickup court, generally. Every now and then there'll be some behemoth or a monster that I'm just like, I'm not guarding him. They're like, you're the tallest guy. I'm not taking the behemoth to just abuse me for my workout. Not going to do it.
Yeah.
Like dudes just jumping up and dunking just for no reason, just doing it as a warm up, like they're not playing a game. They're just jumping up and dunking. Okay, well, I can't do that. I might be able to make a shot every now and then. For a while there, I was actually toot my own horn. I was pretty good at shooting the basketball. Actually, recently, I had to get new glasses, so there's no way I could play basketball at this point. I don't think I'm blind.
You can't wear the glasses?
I just
Rather not.
I mean, I could wear the glasses, or I could get some sort of sport goggle type thing. I am the old man in the sport goggle thing, playing basketball, trying to run with the young bucks. Just nah.
Yeah.
You ever get into racket sports or?
I've played tennis, very lightly, I guess you could say, here and there. I do enjoy badminton. A couple summers I put up badminton nets in my backyard.
That's the one with the shuttlecock?
Yep.
Yeah. I've never been able to successfully play backgammon. I've tried a few times, or not badminton. Backgammon either. Backgammon, especially because it's a soft game. There are perfect moves every time, so I just cannot.
Complicated.
You but there are players that know the perfect moves,
Oh yeah.
So.
It's a gambling game, right?
I don't see why anyone would do that, knowing that it's solved.
Well, it's one of those things like.
You may not know it, solved.
It's like chess, right? Like it's gonna take a long, long time. My uncle was a big backgammon player, and he saved every single article of backgammon strategy from the New York Times for 15 years or something. So you can imagine, if there's an article every day for 15 years in the New York Times or whenever they come out, there's a lot of strategy. So it's going to take, unless you're an absolute end boss, you're not going to know all the moves to do correctly. And then when the gambling comes into it, it changes the way the game plays a little bit or something because of the betting.
Right.
So you can kind of stray away from you can have some strategies that might be better. Like you can kind of bluff and stuff. I think in certain ways.
Exactly. You
Make
can
the other player think that you know something that you don't.
you can put them in an uncomfortable position, even if they're in a powerful position currently.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking about your nomadic life, traveling around. You must have seen some pretty interesting stuff. Any particular city here in the States stick out to you besides Austin?
So yeah, most of the traveling's been outside of the U.S.
Oh, okay,
because
nice.
because of the online poker thing in 2011. So,
Passport stamps.
yeah.
Where all did you mosey to?
I've been to the Bahamas 4 times.
Okay.
That was to go to the PCA tournament. I didn't always play the main event. I only did that once, the $10,000 buy-in. But I would go there with friends and play the smaller stakes and just have a nice poker vacation, which was always fun. I highly recommend it, but it is unfortunate. Sometimes the weather's not the best. And the schedule at a time where you can't really avoid, if it's going to rain for that week, you still have to go. But who cares? You're playing poker. So Bahamas, I did some traveling in Costa Rica and Nicaragua. That wasn't really poker related, but that was just traveling. As far as the U.S., I mean, I liked LA. I thought it was a little too many people and traffic, but
dude,
there was a lot of action there. So
they solved traffic overnight, dude. They solved traffic literally overnight. Everybody work from home now. No more traffic.
When they're going to build tunnels, right?
Well, they're looking for, I guess what Elon I think is trying to do is the Hyperloop, right? I think that's the thing where you just go and it's like go from Dallas to Austin in like 9 minutes or something. I think that's something that I don't really keep tabs on it, but it's in the realm of consciousness. I don't even know where the tubes are going to be at all. I would hope Austin to Dallas, but probably not. It's probably going to be on the East Coast somewhere along like Florida to New York or something like that. That's where I would put the freaking tube if it was me. But everybody working from home solves the traffic thing, which means we could get more people in the city, build more stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody just works from home. We don't need as much infrastructure. I think it paves the way more for like an autonomous car, because now we can clear the roads and make these roads only for the autonomous car. And if you need to travel for essential business, you use these roads over here. And so now you have cars just driving themselves and you don't even have to drive anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially considering these businesses have to pay a lot of money to have these office spaces. And are they really necessary? I mean, people can be productive from home.
Right.
You don't need, that's a huge expense.
And that's
right out of the gates.
That's money that could, I mean, if the business was had the right mind of the employee, they could easily then pass that savings along to their employee who's doing the same amount of work. That would never happen. It would just go to like a bonus, a line item in some VP's bonus. But operations man gets a promotion or oh yeah, look how much money I saved by making everybody go to work. IT is winning. But it's long overdue. It's 2020, bro. We definitely are in the future.
Yeah, I'm surprised more people don't work from home already. A lot of people do.
No, now that it's mandated. I mean, well, not mandated, but the virus is dictating. That's something that sends a chill up my spine. We're not being. It's not a law or anything, but we can't get in groups of 10. So I can't get 10 of my friends together.
Yeah, kind of ridiculous. I mean, we'll see if it's all worth it in the long run. Who knows?
Well, the thing is, what I think, of course, is that it's going to get worse before it gets better. But when it gets better, if you make it to the other side, it's going to be better. And that's what we really should be striving for, is better. But there will be losses along the way, and that's, I don't really know how you wrap your head around that exactly.
Yeah, I don't
Just
know either.
kind of what happens, I guess, kind of a circle of life mentality.
Mhm.
Those who weren't supposed to make it don't make it. But we're talking about eliminating so many jobs and leaving these people out potentially. Like, I think about it and I'm just like, I'm doomsday, man. I just go straight to Great Depression. There's no more jobs, actually. Instead of having to do that, do the job, people, overseas do all the jobs. Obviously, if we're not even going to be in the office, we'll just get somebody who can be on a computer and know the job, no problem. Have to pay even potentially.
Yeah, I mean, that happens already a lot, outsourcing, right? But yeah, I could see that becoming more prevalent for sure.
Or I mean, even if it's not uh, outsourcing per se, like what would be really awesome, we're all working from home. Like, I have a company that I work for that I'll never say a bad word about this company. They've stuck with me for so long. But I'm using a desktop computer. That is, I kind of was shocked at that. Like, you didn't, I mean, maybe at some point they'll upgrade to laptops, but like, and I mean, also we're in a financial industry, so maybe we have to be more secure potentially. So that's why we use desktops. Um, but the idea of being a mobile worker instead of work, I can have an office anywhere. I'm going to travel here and I'm going to work there, but I'm going to be in a different city.
Yeah, with the laptop, I use the desktop for poker just because it's usually a little bit cleaner. And like right now, I'm not using these software programs that run in the background, but I used to, and it's pretty intensive. So you can usually buy a cheaper PC that can have more processing power as opposed to laptops. You're going to spend a bit more money. They can be just as powerful in most cases, but you're going to have to spend more money to get that size and push down.
And I mean, the screen isn't, you're
Yeah, I
not
could still plug this into a laptop.
really, it would work. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you need a certain port, but like most of them have it. An Apple wouldn't. But if you had an Apple monitor, you could plug it into that laptop.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with like the little converter cables that you can run. I just, for some reason, my limited brain capacity, I just thought you would have two. I guess you would have two monitors, or
So
would
yeah,
you
the
just
one
run
thing that
one?
you can't do usually on a laptop is run two.
Okay.
So yeah, in the past I have run two or even three before.
3 of these guys like this?
No, well, my main setup used to be a 30-inch,
Jesus.
not widescreen, so more square and tall.
Yeah.
And then a 24-inch, actually, interestingly enough, if you turn it vertical,
Ooh.
and you put it on the side, you have a little wing here, and it evens up exactly to the length of the side, so it makes it for a nice little wing.
Extension,
so you can
basically.
have, like, some extra stuff if you need some maybe. These days, you're not really allowed to play with charts and stuff on the major sites. They kind of ban that, but you used to be able to have like maybe some charts, or you put your lobbies over there so you know when you're going to make money, or if you were being kind of lazy and only had 2 tables, maybe watch a movie on the side, something like that. So it's nice to have extra screen space, have your results over there, whatever.
The charts you were talking about, those are like the ranks of starting hands, those kind of charts, or what kind of chart would you be using?
Yeah, sure. Like just all sorts of stuff. Raising, free betting ranges, calling ranges, cold calling ranges. I mean, calling out of the big blind. You could have chart after chart after chart.
And you're flipping through those after a particular hand situation, or?
Well, not always, but like as I'm doing it, you're learning over time, right? So like, Queen 7 suited is a call against a cutoff open, or actually an open from anywhere, pretty much out of the big blind. But I might come across, maybe a hand like Queen 7 offsuit, and I haven't really had that spot come up and had to check on it. So I look at it and see if it's a fold or call, and then go from there. And that's usually GTO stuff that's been run by computers, and it becomes more complicated when there's more people in the pot. You're getting better odds, but it's harder to realize more equity. Kind of a complicated conversation, but
yeah, I mean, adding a different.
You're learning over time, but it's nice to be able to reference stuff as solid. Another example would be like pushing or folding, like the sitting goes I was talking about. If there's charts that can just tell you which hands to go all in with which stack sizes and which hands to fold. So you can just look at that and just go from there.
So it's like a range. It's like a range finder for you. Like, all right, I have 20 big blinds. This is my range of shoving hands, and this is my range of folding hands. And then it's like beep, beep, beep. And then as you look at the charts over and over, it just comes ingrained, and eventually it's like muscle memory. It's like 20 big blinds, calculate, here's my range, calculate.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I guess your processor is just better than mine because my brain just can't. Even watching you
But
navigate.
I've been doing this for a long time. Like it's yeah, it is probably surprising. Some of the stuff that I'm thinking about just comes so second nature. Like it's all about stack sizes in these tournaments. It's about knowing which hands to play and then just ranging people, so figuring out what they have. And I just played so many hands. I know when things don't make sense, even when I'm playing 12 tables and it goes bet, check, bet. I'm like, what hand range does he check back after betting the flop that he's now betting the river with? So I can call him light and know that he probably doesn't have that strong of a hand because he didn't bet the turn, because there was a draw up there, something like that. So there's a lot going through. There's a lot going on in the thought process, but yeah, it takes time to figure it all out for sure.
Yeah, like I said, your processor is just so much more advanced. Your brain, to be able to do that, I just think it's incredible. Maybe it's a trained skill. Anybody could learn how to do it. I've tried my hand at doing it and failed miserably, so it's very impressive.
Yeah, I think it's something that anybody can probably learn, but it's like anybody can also learn how to play like StarCraft if they wanted to, but it just takes the effort that most people don't want to put in, and there is some sort of, I think, like inherent skill set in being able to do a bunch of things at once. It's like it's extreme multitasking.
One of the old adages I think about Hold'em specifically is something like takes a minute to learn, but a lifetime to master, or something like that.
Yep.
I spent my fair share of time in the card room and pretty much sworn it off until I have unlimited wealth. So don't see myself lacing them up. But I'm thinking about making a deposit, obviously thinking about getting back in there, mixing it up every day. I think about it, but the results are so bad that it would take a run unlike any other, or just one big score.
Yeah, I mean, so there's two ways to go about it. Like you can shoot for that one big score, or you can shoot for like the long run. I think I have to follow here in the bubble.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's right. I don't mind when I don't lose.
No, I mean, it's just ridiculous when that happens.
It's happened a couple times.
We've seen it twice, exactly.
3 times.
Oh, I only saw the 2 of them where you
Jack,
both have the exact same hand. Oh yeah, the split straight. You're right. You both had Queen Jack. You both have the same hand, and you're both thinking, "I'm so good right now." You are actually. So good thinking. Now you mentioned, the calling station at a live game being one thing that you look for. Any other advanced things that you're seeing besides just the basic, they're calling too many hands?
So yeah, like that's I'm characterizing players by how many hands they're playing, so that the better players will often re-raise more. So that's sort of, I know that they're playing a little bit different, especially if you see someone re-betting, in a short period of time, or you see them show out a hand like Ace Jack or Ace Queen, where a lot of these live players don't realize that it's a good idea to 3-bet those hands. So I know that those are better players that I'm playing against, and I'll try to adjust to that a little bit. But other advanced things that I notice, it's just about reading. For me, it's less about reading the person and more about reading the betting in the line. So, like, having seen so many hands online, there's spots where it's just obvious people are bluffing. They haven't thought it together, and they end up on the river with 7 high, and they think this is my only chance to win, but they didn't put the whole story together. So I'm able to break it down and realize that they might have, a lot of hands that are just completely missed here based on the way they were betting. The size that they bet, that's a big one. So when people bet big, on certain boards, they usually have it. If they bet small on a board that has a flush draw, they usually don't have it. You can kind of attack that because in general, people are trying to protect their hand. They hate to get stuff out on. So if I see something that's small on a board that doesn't really make sense, I might add it. Even though I said I don't bluff very often, I know it in heads up in the situation. I'll just be able to take it down a lot with a small raise. So I'll do something like that.
Kind of sensing weakness.
Yeah, sensing weakness based on the bet size.
Mm-hmm. And then one thing you mentioned there, it's a basic skill, but I can't really get a gauge on the 3-bet. I struggle with it all the time. Paralyzes me. Should I 3-bet here? I don't know.
Yeah. So like, you usually want to be leaning towards 3-betting as opposed to cold calling, and there's a couple reasons for it. Like, one basic idea behind it is that you want to push out people's equity. So when you get the hand heads up, you can you are pushing out people behind you, right? So say somebody raises in middle position and you call next to act, you're allowing everyone else to kind of just call, and they're pretty loose to begin with anyway. But they treat, because they don't see the player pool 3-betting very often, they're going to treat a 3-bet as with a lot of strength. So they're going to fold all these hands like 6, 7 suited and stuff, right? So if I'm just calling with a pocket 9s or 10s, that 6, 7 suited is always calling behind. They're going to have like 25% equity against our 2 hands.
You're getting the roughage out of there.
If I 3-bet, yeah, now they're just folding. So you're just pushing out that 27% equity they would have otherwise had calling. So 3-betting is like really, really important, and it I don't like to bluff 3-bet. Technically, if you're going to be 3-betting, you need to have some bluffs in your range when you're 3-betting too. Otherwise, people could just fold everything, even though they're too loose here, they won't. But the one reason I stray away from that, particularly at low stakes, is because you do get people that sometimes are so sticky that they will call with 6, 7 suited even if you re-raise. So it makes bluffing bad pre-flop. So like I said, stray away from the bluffing, focus on value. And as far as your value hands go, be willing to fold. Like, don't be scared of 3-betting pocket jacks and then you make it 50 and the guy makes it 125. Like, what does he have? Is he really bluffing you, or does he have pocket 10s? Like, no, they have aces or kings. So you can just fold your jacks, move on, and otherwise, you get a call, or everyone just folds and you win money. I think people they focus on losing the big pots so much in their mind. I think they 3-bet jacks one time and somebody hit a set of 10s and they went broke, and they don't want to 3-bet anymore. But if you look in the long run about how many big ones are winning, that 3-betting is calling, you're gonna win a lot more. Like I've run numbers on hands like ace queen offsuit, which a lot of people go back and forth between re-raising and calling, and like in online MTTs, I was winning a ton of money 3-betting, and I was losing big blinds by just calling. So it just kind of shows you that power of winning the initial raise and the blinds and the antes adds up a lot. And then not to mention, if you're in position, and even if you miss, you now have a range advantage on most boards. You're the one representing strength. You 3-bet, they now called instead of 4-bet you, so you can bet and take it down on most flops, and then you win another couple bets. And when that happens, you're not really thinking about it too much. You're just like, oh, okay, I re-raised and I won. But when you do it and you win, you lose your whole stack. You're like, oh man, why did I do that? Maybe I should have done something different, and it messes up people's strategy.
It's hard for me because I think I am, an average poker player. Maybe I would consider myself, I know the terminology, the lingo. I've been in the rooms enough to feel like a player, but I'm definitely not, just because of the results. How do you turn it around?
I would say number one, track your results. You definitely want to track them to know where you're at. So you can download some programs on your phone and make sure you just put in how much you're buying in court. Another thing is just have the proper mindset of like what you're trying to accomplish. Are you there for fun, or are you there to take this really seriously and give it a go? And if you're there to take it seriously and give it a go, you need to make sure that you have several buy-ins. You want to be able to make sure you're playing well when you're playing. So if you do lose a buy-in and that puts you on kind of tilt, you need to walk away right away.
That 5-10 story where I splashed the full buy-in on the very first hand, Rockets. I did not choose to extend my stay and pull out the second bullet.
Probably the best.
I was just like, this is just going to go immediately to somebody else. So
yeah,
I bid you a day.
Yeah, it happens to me pretty rarely, I would say, but it definitely happens. Especially when I get to the 2 buy-in point, at 1-2, it's a 300 max. Losing $900 at 1-2 in one session can be kind of stressful. So like I'll just step away, unless the game's really good. I usually just keep going because like why not? But yeah, stepping away is good, and then just learning. Like I said, Crush Live Poker is a really great resource. I hate to plug them without getting paid at all.
Oh no, what is it? Crush Live Poker?
Yeah, CrushLivePoker.com. Bart Hansen runs it. He's currently living in Austin, actually. So if you are in the area, you'll see him around at Texas Card House and stuff, commenting on games. And he's doing these commentaries and these videos about the games that are around here. So they're very, they're very useful. Even learning sometimes what some of these regular players are doing at higher stakes. Right now I'm not playing higher stakes, but if I were, I'd definitely be watching these videos a lot to see what I'm up against for when I do take a shot.
What exactly are they broadcasting? I know like everything's kind of in the opposite way right now with everything. He moved here and then they shut everything down.
Yeah, the Texas Card House just has a hole card, so they're broadcasting on YouTube where you can see people's hole cards, and there's a couple commentators, guest commentators that just talk about the hands. And one of them's a friend of mine. His name's Casey. Call him Bones.
Oh, dude, I know Bones.
Yeah, I met him back in the day when I first moved here, like 8 years ago. So he's a good, well-known live pro around here, and he comments and plays in the game sometimes.
I mean, I say I know the guy, but I only know him as Bones. I really don't know him,
Yeah, you can learn a lot from those streams too, and like watching the hole cards is something you don't get to see when you actually play. So this new hole card thing, which has been around since World Series of Poker, but the game is more complex now, and then you have the commentary. So, and it's also, most of it's unedited, like you're seeing every hand. So it's nice to see how loose people are, what they're 3-betting with. Just getting to see all the hole cards instead of just seeing, when ace, king, and aces get it all in.
Sure.
You're seeing like people like where they do with 6-8 suited after somebody raises, or like calling or folding or what. That stuff can be really important.
And the other thing, you're getting the full story. Where on the initial broadcast of TV poker, it was like you said, oh well, they're all in here, and this guy's got more chips than this guy, and it looks like he's a little bit behind, and here's the turn, and the river, but you don't really know
Yeah, they're trying to make it more exciting and
right.
Reasonable for the average viewer. With these other streams, and especially if you go on Crush Live Poker, where it's edited, but it's it's redone. He's talking you through the hands about what he would do or how he would approach these situations, and it can be the best stuff I've come across as far as any kind of training to do with live poker. I mean, that would be step number one for me, is like just sign up for Crush Live Poker, or just at least go on there and sign up and watch the free videos and see if it's something that your ADD is not too out of control that you can watch. Not even particularly anybody. I know a lot of people that play poker have ADD, so it's hard to study sometimes. But if this is so valuable and doesn't take too long, you can do 40-minute videos a couple times a week, and you probably learn a ton.
Definitely. I've been doing some reading and some research, and just haven't been doing any practicing just due to the financial maneuvers I've been making. Put it all in on something, missed, completely drained the fun fund, if you will. So a little sideline, but I'm feeling positive. I'll definitely check out this site. I've checked out, I think Doug Polk's site I've checked out.
Yeah, so those sites are great too, but they're very geared towards online.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Crush Live Poker is all live, and he's been a live pro for a long time, so he's got a good handle on how these games play. And they play so much different than internet poker that it's almost not even worth learning how to beat online cash games. Of course, it will bring you above the average player, but if you just start from a standpoint of learning how to play against the people you're going to be playing against, you'll have a better chance right off the bat. And one last thing too.
Sure.
It's just honestly just play tight. Like, people are way too loose. Pay attention to stack sizes. Understand odds and implied odds. Like, if you raise or someone raises with a short stack, which you often see in these games, a lot of people will never fold a pair because they want to hit a set. But you're losing money if you're not getting the correct implied odds, right? So if a $100 stack raises a 20, you have to call 20, and what's the most you can win after that? You have
Sure.
$80. How often are you going to hit a set? I don't know what it is. One in every
7, maybe.
I think it's a little higher. One in every 10 or 13 or something.
No way, really? Jeez.
Well, you need higher than.
I'm way off.
And as far as implied odds, you need better than the exact amount of times you hit a set because a couple things have to happen. Your opponent has to also have a strong range, which you're never really sure about, and then he also has to hit a hand where he's going to get all in to get your full stack in, right? So instead of just you might hit a flop 1 in every 8 times, but implied odds you need like 1 in 15 to make up for the times where you do flop a set, but you don't get any action. You just like bet once and then toss it.
Never really think about that. I do have one philosophical question for you. Run this by you. Mantra or quote that you might live your life by.
Yes, before I can't with I guess it'll be my poker quote.
The don't loan people money?
And don't loan anybody money. Sometimes it can be a hard lesson to learn, and of course there's always exceptions, but in general it's just not a good idea because it comes and goes so fast in gambling that you're better off just keeping to yourself. But as far as life mantra, I don't know, I was thinking about that a little bit more. I forgot what I was even thought of.
Yeah, nothing's going to be...
Something similar to you, just like be nice and, go about your ways in a cordial manner and be respectful of people. I'm sure I could think of a good one. It would just take me some time.
Yeah, golden rule. You golden rule. Definitely, all you guys say is golden rule.
Yeah.
It rules the day. I was trying to get a group picture taken with my hats. I had 2 guys at work pick up hats while we were still in the office, and I wanted to get a picture of us all 3 wearing the hats because I only have a picture of me and one other person, a 2. I wanted to set another record, and obviously we can't get together in groups of 10 or more, so
right.
Can't do that, so I can't get that picture. But eventually I got to get 3 knuckleheads in a picture to set that record. Other records I'm chasing right now, the record for the amount of deals at this particular company. I don't know what it is. No one has told me what the actual record is, but every month they want to get a certain number, and my goal is to single-handedly get that number by myself. Ambitious? Maybe crazy? Maybe. But I think I have a strategy that could work to put me in a bit of a sticky situation like I told you earlier about the job. Like, man, I got kind of a sure thing here, I think, now. If I take the risk, make the plunge, have to do a pros and cons list, I guess. Do you do that when you have a big decision, like pros and cons list? Or oh, here we go.
Pocket 3, ace 3, ace queen. Ace queen make any sense? Aces and 9s is possible. Fuck. That 3 is really good for me, but just always bluffing whenever I'm shopping.
I've been watching you go at it doing battle for a couple hours now. This is the first time I've ever seen you rip it all the way down on the time extension.
Yep.
Timed you out?
Holy shit, I didn't see. I thought I had 40 seconds.
To me,
This is a tough decision because am I still 3 to 13? No, it's not right.
Yeah, it looked like you were contemplating because of the position in the tournament that you were at?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Watch this guy play like in that bag now. Oh god. Yeah. Oh man. Well, I mean, I'm not usually scooping there. It's gonna be a chop, aces and threes with the queen, and it's for the rest of my stack in a soft tournament with only 13 players left. So
Better spots to.
to explain it a little bit better, it'd be hard for anybody listening to understand really, but he limped and then called a raise, and then check raised. So you don't see that very often. He limped. So what is he limping and then calling with that hits an ace-3 queen board? Because most people will raise ace-queen. If they limp ace-queen, they might re-raise it. So he's like repping ace-3 and pocket threes.
The one that popped in my head was ace-queen, possibly, but
ace-queen, yeah, but like to limp.
possibly.
People do limp call ace-queen, but a lot of people will come in for a raise.
Sure.
And if they did limp call ace-queen, which would be top 2, a lot of times they would just call, I feel like, because they're sort of locking the board up. There was a flush draw though, so I don't know. Tough spot, deep in the tournament. I've been running kind of bad, and I kind of want to keep playing. Try to give myself a slightly better spot to take it down. I think folding the turn would be too tight.
You got some queens down there. Looks like they're running out of time.
Thank you.
I just thought probably better spots.
Yeah, I mean, and also this timing, like if somebody check calls, check raises, bets, and then just snap jams the river, it's like it could be like a leveling thing where they're trying to make it think that they have it, but most of the time they just have it.
Right.
Like he didn't have a decision. You just had a strong hand. You just snap jam the river. I mean, that river card's not very good for him. He doesn't have very many 2 pairs anymore. Like, do most people fold an ace there? What does it look like I have? It looks like I have an ace. So he's kind of suicidally just jamming. So I don't know. He probably had it. Didn't he?
We'll never know. That's the great mystery, and the things that really crush you playing this particular game are. I guess it's kind of a sport now. It's on the worldwide leader. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, one thing too is that I'm not sure on the software it's easy or not, but you can show one card now or show your cards often. So I do find that if someone makes a big bluff like that was a big move. There's a lot more bets there than the average pot, right? It was limp, raise, call, bet, raise, call, bet, call, bet. Like that's a lot of bets. So for somebody to when they pull off something like that, they usually like to show their cards. And
really, people do that. I never.
People like to do it. So names and when they just snap in the river and then I pulled them up. Let me go ahead and assume that he had something pretty strong there.
And when did you get started at this today? When did you actually start the clock, as they say?
I think around 1 p.m.
1 p.m. My goodness.
Yeah, it's been a long grind, but I've had a couple of days off. I wanted to put in a big session today.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just want to put in a big session because I've been taking some time off, and these tournaments run a long time. You need to play a lot of them, and you're going to be in it for a while. So.
That's the thing. It's like I could see you sitting here till 5. You're that locked in and just doing everything.
Yeah, like
pretty seamlessly.
I have even this one. I mean, this won't be over for a while, but like this one. 55 players left. I mean, I'm probably looking at another 3 hours at least, 2 hours maybe. So yeah, I've noticed that when I put in these long sessions, I'm usually ending around 1:30 to 3, depending on how far I get in the last one. So obviously you wind down, and if you're stuck in one, you got to play it out to the end because you want to take that down. So before it was all crazy. Now it's a lot more calm with 4 tables. I'm not going to be registering anymore because the tournaments that start now are going to go to like 5 in the morning. I don't want to do that. Whether play tomorrow or actually going to play live tomorrow.
And I didn't really pay too much attention, but do you do any late regging? Are you that guy that shows up at the last
Sure, like
hour?
I'll like reg these small stakes tournaments, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
also re-enter them as well.
Okay.
These 1650s they're big tournaments with decent guarantees, and you get a lot of chips. So I like re-entering, and as long as I have like 30 big blinds, it's not the best like bankroll management strategy, but I'm willing to gamble a little bit because I think if I build a stack, then I can start to really crush.
I hadn't even noticed that it petered down a little bit in terms of the table count.
Yeah. And this is part of the big multi-tabling thing too, right? This is what happens at the end. So now I can, some of these aren't late stages, they're middle, but now that I have 4, I can kind of see what's going on a little bit better. And, that's what happens. Like in the beginning, you kind of go through the motions, and at the end, you can, when you have less tables, you start paying closer attention because you're farther in the tournament. So your decisions are going to be worth more.
And one question that popped in my brain, you said it earlier, when you were playing limit poker, you needed to have a certain amount of big bets. I forget exactly how many you said it was. It wasn't 400, was it?
No, I believe it was. So it was $400.
Oh, okay.
And at 1-2, I can't remember if 1-2 the big bet's 4 or 2, but I think it's 2. So 400 would be 200 big bets. But I think around 100 is considered like okay. 200 is like, I did the research where that was like that's how much you need to like literally like never go broke.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking the 1-2 limit hold'em. A big pot in that game is $20.
Sure.
So you're not, it's not too crazy. With tournaments, I would recommend. You need a lot.
You need a lot.
I'll tell you that much. I would say, depending on the stakes you're playing too, right? So if you have micros and you're just getting online a shot, say you're playing a $3 games, you could probably get away with having like 50 buy-ins, or 100 buy-ins would be ideal, $300.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're playing like high stakes or mid stakes, where the games are actually tough, so your variance is going to be bigger, you're going to need, upwards of 100 buy-ins easily. So for 50, whatever 50 times 100 is, 5K. You need a lot more than people think. You can't just play a $55 buy-in and expect to win in the long run with $1,000.
Mm. And so, one thing you mentioned that at an earlier point was that you had like a backer or a staking type of deal. At a certain point, it's kind of become a little bit more commonplace. I think now, I guess you have they have an online ledger somewhere that just shows your results, and that's how you kind of convince somebody, hey, pay me to play online poker.
Yeah, it's, part of it is networking too. Playing in games with the same person, and then meet and asking them, hey, do you want to discuss strategy? That kind of got me in with this one guy who ended up being a co-creator of the stable. So because we were playing the same games and we started talking on Skype or whatever, I was sort of just became a friend of his. So he knew that I was a winning player and was playing professionally myself. And when things kind of got a little bit rough as far as me being on a downswing and needing to improve and needing resources, they offered me a really good deal actually at first, because I was when you have a good trust level with somebody, you get a better deal than average, because that's a big factor in staking and poker is trust, because people run away with your money sometimes if you're a backer. So they knew I'm never going to do that, because they just known me for a year and a half or 2 years. My personality type is not to steal from anybody, so they gave me a better than average deal, which was nice.
John is one of the more trustworthy names of all the names, so he did well there. Mm-hmm. Networking, being a winning player, that makes sense. Online, live tournaments. You said you're playing tomorrow. Are you playing here at the StakeHouse or somewhere?
Yeah, just here. No, I don't play live tournaments very often, honestly, because I've been focusing on cash games.
Mm-hmm.
I find them to be a little bit of a time sink, and when you play a lot of live cash, you usually know where you stand. So over 500 to 1,000 hours. If you're a winning player, you have an hourly rate, and it just seems like a waste of time to spend all day playing a tournament and then bust it when you could have been making, between $25 and $60 an hour, whatever your win rate is. In a tournament, a $300 tournament, a very high expectation would be $300, right? If you have 100% return on investment, it might take you 2 days, and you're not going to realize that return. You're going to not realize it more often than you are. Whereas in cash games, it's almost the opposite. You can still not realize your hourly could break even for many hours, but eventually it all evens out.
One thought I had about poker, in tournaments, it's like a choose your own adventure to like millions of dollars potentially. As you go through, we have all these different decision points that you can make. Like you said, each play could be rationalized at each different time, almost every single scenario.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-boggling to me to think about. But yet there are pros like yourself. It's frustrating to me because I'm a competitive type personality to just know that I'm a loser at something. I got other talents, I'm a people person, damn it.
Playing a combo draw only because, once again, we're 3 of the money, and he just has it. Nope, I thought this was suited.
Yeah. You're allowed to misclick here or there. You're allowed to misclick here or there.
4s, on the other hand, we're going all into that.
Sailboats. Winding down here, actually. Trying to think of any lasting parting words of wisdom you wanted to pass on to the audience. I think
yeah, I would say just like if you're going to try to take poker seriously, like go in there with a plan. It's okay to be a recreational player and want to just have fun, and go ahead and do that. But if you do want to take it seriously, like make sure you have the finances to go in there and lose at least 15 to 20 buy-ins. So like 300. You want like 6K. You're going to be playing 1-2, especially if it's teams to play big.
Come on.
So, and you can always you don't always have to be super stringent, but that's the best way to go about it. If you wanted to take a 10 buy-in shot, that's fine. You win a little bit, but be conservative. Know where you stand, and like don't move up fast. If you're beating 1-2, stick with it for a while. Grind it out. Make sure you put in track your results. Get 100 hours in at least before you consider playing a higher game, because you can run very good and you will think you're better than you are, and you'll get crushed. And when you get crushed at a higher stake, you get crushed for a lot more than you would otherwise. So.
Yeah, I mean, the famous scene in the greatest poker movie ever, I knew immediately what he had, It's got exactly what nightmares are made of. I always like to play the higher stakes because I just like to gamble more money, honestly, I would be like, oh man, well, I could win if we're playing 5-10. I could win like 5K tonight. Like, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, I'm just pissing away money because there are people there that know how to play poker.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I would leave it with just pretty much that. There's some other things that would take me a little time to think about, but
yeah,
play tight in general. Don't think you have to force something or do something special to win in these smaller stakes. Very soft games. But most people would agree that if you actually just play it perfectly pre-flop, you're probably going to be a winning player in your average lose 2-5 game. So even if your decision tree is a little bit messed up post-flop, or you're a little bit scared of big pots and there's some aggressive players that are pushing you out once in a while, as long as you stick to that good strategy pre-flop, you'll be okay. And you'll be able to beat up on the really weak players, and you won't be leaking away all the money like everyone else is when they're calling you when your range is strong, and you're just folding when their range is strong.
I guess for me, I'm too emotional. I know it. When I think about what you just said, I'm not capable of taking the emotion of the swings out of it. And it blurs my vision, if you will.
It happens to everybody. It happens to me too. But yeah, you just got to try to look past it the best you can, and try to realize that all you do is make the best decision. The results don't really matter.
The results don't even matter, but they do keep score. We do keep score. And some people are a little ahead, and some people are a lot behind. So
yeah, I mean, results matter, but in a way, at the end of the day, they don't really. As long as you play the best that you can, that's all you can do, and then learn, and then hopefully you're winning at a decent clip, and you can continue from there. Also, keep your strategy basic. You shouldn't be making all these super fly decisions pre-flop. Like, you can obviously change your strategy based on certain player types, but if you know, there's no reason to play 6-8 off, for example. Like, I don't care if it's your favorite hand, it's not winning money. So toss your 6-8 off and play your 6-7 suited, and you'll win a lot more money.
right on. I think if you said you're putting together a movie of your life, you had the John Dayton show.
That would be it.
That would be your movie. So I'm interested. I'm a fan. Thanks for joining me here on the Power Hour with the A Team.
Thank
I'm
you,
gonna
sir.
sign off tonight, and we'll do this again real soon. Hopefully, big scores in the near future.
Yeah, sounds good. Hopefully I'll have something else to ramble about.
Absolutely. Talk to you later.
Later, man.